The killing of black folks circles back to the Black Panther Party for self-defense. So you don't just hear the Black Panther Party. The original Black Panther Party is a political organization. I'm talking about the Black Panther Party for self-defense that starts in Oakland in 1966 in October of Bobby Seale, Huey Newton. And the reason it's called, again, self-defense is because they're worried about the fact that the Alameda County Morgue keeps showing up with black bodies killed by the Oakland PD, despite the fact that we know that the Oakland PD was actually actively reaching out and recruiting working class white men from the South to police the flatlands of Oakland. So they just wanted to protect themselves. Black Lives Matter. And so part of it is when we disconnect the historical narrative from the contemporary moment, it feels like this is an anomaly, that this is a new moment, and that there is something different. In fact, none of those things are the case.
So what is wrong, and the reason why I have this book right here, Kerner Report, that took place after the LA riots, and it broke it down that we are two nations, one black, one white, inside, separate and very unequal.
Yeah.
And Kerner, I believe that was the one, the Kerner Report, that's what it's known as, that we still don't pay any attention to it, that we still go back to square one and ask that question, why is it happening? Why would a young guy, 29 years old, get strapped up and say, I'm going to kill some cops today on my birthday? What kind of mindset, and I know you're not a psychiatrist, but what is it? Is it that you see so much of black men being taken out and you never see a cop convicted for it, that you snap and you just say, I got to do something else? What is it? What would be your take on that?
Why did he snap?
Why did he snap?
Why do we call it that he snapped?
What else would you call it? I don't, would you, how many people wake up on their birthday and say, I'm going to take somebody, I'm going to take them out, I got my gun, I got my training, this is what I'm going to do.
All right, so let's try it differently. Individual radicalization using an asymmetric model to create chaos is something that the planet is grappling with.
Which means, break that down for my buddy on the corner that may be swigging on some cheap wine, okay?
So, and we need to, as a people, be able to do that. I do that in my classrooms constantly, meaning that I need you to be able to access the vocabulary, the tools, the acumen, the approach, the perspective, the body, the energy of the majority culture so that they hear me. Mm-hmm. And I need to be able to code switch and say, you know those same people over in France who are blowing people up?
Yes.
Because they're radicalized by what they're seeing?
Mm-hmm.
That feels interesting.
There's a parallel.
I don't know. You tell me. What's an interesting parallel is that if you know anything about the soundtrack and the music for the Arab Spring over the last 4 years, it's the production of African-American men and women in the United States. It's called hip-hop. So if you go to the streets of Tunisia, if you go to the Arab Spring, and if you listen for the soundtrack of youth, it's produced by black folks in the United States. That's interesting.
We're impacting people so far away.
It's not impact. They're finding who they are through the cultural expressions of black folks. They are finding who they are through the cultural expression of black folks. Right. They are finding who they are through the cultural expression of black folks.
So you make me want to say Beyonce. Why? Why do I say Beyonce?
It can be, it's that.
What I'm saying at this moment. And when at the Super Bowl, she does this display of the Black Panther Party for self-defense, which that part is never attached on to the Black Panther Party.
Of course not.
And she caught flack for it, but she stood firm.
And was very clear.
So what part of America can't hear? What part of America can't digest and break down? Now, you deal with young people as a professor at Pasadena City College, Professor West. What is the climate like in the classrooms?
If we do what we're supposed to do, we create an environment in which we're not the sage on the stage and I'm pontificating about my crap. if we do it right, we create a space in which they, meaning a student, is engaged about ideas, develops critical analysis, has the ability to understand what is they're being told. I give them a narrative. So my equation is data points plus frame, lens, and theory plus narrative equals story or history. And what I'm constantly trying to do is to get them to think about the data point isn't going to shift. November 22nd, 1963, John F. Kennedy's assassinated. That doesn't shift.
Right.
The frame by which you see that, and then the narrative then equals the history. So the choices that you're making of how you're framing it is what changes. And so part of it is what I'm hoping to have happen in the classroom is that I'm empowering you, that you now believe that you can apply a frame, a lens, or a theory, no matter what the content is, to be able to tell that story. And more importantly, that you can do analysis to figure out, okay, you just told me something, but tell me where you got that data point from. Tell me what frame or lens or theory or approach that you're doing to be able to get that story. Because it's not because I want a student to have a little bit of what I call punk energy. Analysis, original thought, creativity, entrepreneurship, it has to come from a little bit of punk energy. I need you to believe in you. Not because of something I said. I need you to question me.
Now, do you see that transformation in students often? I mean, you have a class size of how many people roughly? How many in the classroom?
Average size anywhere between 25 and 35.
All right. Have you ever seen a student A come in? Oh, this black guy teaching this class. What I got to hear this here? Okay. Have you seen a transformation where it becomes like, damn, Wes, I got it?
I wasn't ready to teach black history until I was 50. I just hit 50.
Oh.
So.
Why did you avoid it? Or why wasn't the calling there?
It wasn't the calling. Let me be specific. I was hired to teach African American history 8 years ago. I knew in my mind, in my soul, in my spirit, that I wasn't ready to be an elder. And it's very different being an elder. And I had an arbitrary number in my head, which was 50. And I'm like, after 50, I'm ready to be an elder. And I think being an elder means that you remove ego. Mm-hmm. You don't worry about the sort of ambition and life cycles thing. You're recognizing that my time in this realm of existence is on the short end. And so every time I interact with another human being, and if I have the honor to do that with a young person, meaning that they're at the beginning of their, God willing, their life cycle, that I've got to make sure that they have the tools they need, that they can launch whatever that's going to be for them. Have I seen that transformation? I don't think it's because of me. And
but you may be a part.
No, I used to. I did all that crap, which was just whatever, insecurity. Ego is just insecurity masked with some facade or machismo, whatever you want to call it. When I finally removed myself from the equation, and it just became about it's about you. And when a human being realizes that, 1, I love you, 2, I believe in you, and 3, it has nothing to do with me, it's about you, they're there. Because they realize you don't have an agenda. Oh, crap. Like, you really don't have an agenda. Like, you really loving on me right now. Like, you really believe in me. And you got to negotiate learning differently when you got somebody in front of you like, I believe there's no limit to you. And when somebody truly looks you in the eye and says, I believe there's no limit to you, then any limitations that are there, you're choosing now. Even if I only get you for 54 credit hours face-to-face, every time that you're in my presence, you know I believe there's no limit to who you're supposed to be on this planet. None.
Positive reinforcement.
No. I believe there's no limit to who you are on the planet. Your soul, your spirit, your energy, that which is in you. There's no limit to what you can achieve.
All right, now I can hear you out there right now asking the question. All right, you talked about Black Lives Matter. What about the men in blue? What is wrong with police departments throughout the nation and United States?
I go to experts when it comes to that. Condoleezza Rice, who we brought to the campus a couple of years ago, who's been working with LAPD for
Yes.
years. Her insight was one, when I was listening to her give her speech, that was incredible, based upon her research, based upon her
Yes.
interaction, based upon her engagement.
Right.
She would tell you that the fundamental problem in terms of relationship between the African American community and black men in particular is that white police officers and police officers in general fear black men.
That's
Fear.
the bottom line.
She's like, I don't do her stuff. It's a fear-based relationship. And because it's a fear-based relationship, anytime that there's an engagement, I'm immediately going to need to go to the ultimate to resolve.
Equalizer.
Well, it's not an equalizer.
Eliminating.
Yeah. So and for her, it's until we resolve that piece of it, every time there's an interaction between a person in blue who puts on the role of the state.
Why the black man? Why not a Latino? All tatted up, 6'2", and chisel. Does he generate that same fear instantly?
I disagree with the black-white binary. I am not saying exclusively that this is around the
Okay.
experiences of African American folk. What I believe is that if you go back to child slavery, what you're seeing is that I need to extract labor from this population. I will demonize and remove this population from the nation state. I will remove it from the protection of the Constitution. Incredibly similar to the experience of undocumented persons within the United States in the contemporary moment. So I think, so there's that part of it. So yes, our brown brothers are getting that same treatment. And in many ways, the fact that we're not telling that story is to our detriment. That's one part of it. But the primary part of it is, for this particular place, meaning the United States, we as black folks have moved away from African American exceptionalism, meaning that we are exceptionally targeted by the nation. I think it's a mistake. I'll give you an example. Leonard Curry wrote a book on Boston, 1800 to 1860. And at the turn of the century, as Boston begins to flourish, the Boston Metropolitan Police Department is recognizing that vice and crime and criminal behavior is happening in the city of Boston proper. So it's got to figure out a way that we need to be able to contain and control, or at least put into a place where we know it's going to happen. So guess where they put it? The African American residential and commercial spaces, which means that beginning as early as 1815. I want you to hear that date again. The
1815.
beginning as early as 1815.
1815?
15 in urban spaces within the United States. Police forces are making intentional, conscious decisions that they are going to allow vice, criminal behavior, to flourish in African American residential and commercial spaces. I
Why?
gave you the year 1815 because that's where you're going to get your nasty and your drink on.
Okay, so
If
we
so
can
right
have this
now-
little dirty
right-
spot here.
Right now, if you go down to 75th and Fig, you turn right slow, you can get whatever you want taken care of. Don't try that in Rodeo Boulevard. Don't try that in Arcadia. Don't try that in Temple City. Don't try that in San Marino.
You could try it, but you better not be black.
No, we're not going to allow open air drug markets to occur in those spaces.
Period.
Not going to happen.
But the other part of town,
No,
it can happen.
That's where you're going to do it. Here's what's interesting. So I've always thought I wanted to do this.
Now, wait a minute,
Slow down. Just-
wait a minute,
Yes.
because I'm screaming in the inside, saying we have all these learned and professional people that can pinpoint that thought, and no one has saying we need to correct this. Since 1815, it's just been allowed to. This is the blueprint.
So it's not. It's fluid and changes over time, and it's not necessarily a blueprint for me. I see it as it is a way that the nation state, down to the granular at the neighborhood level, has reacted to the presence of the black body. So whether that is in segregation, Jim Crow, lynching, it's at the core of that is still the presence of the black body within the nation state and the reaction to the presence of the black body.
2016, supposedly years of unfettered slavery, they still don't know what to do with us. This is what this is like shaping up and boiling down to? What do we do with the black man?
Here's the look.
He's a great athlete. He's a great entertainer.
We wanted to get rid of him. If it look,
We
if the,
wanted
the
to,
American,
but what about
the
now?
American Colonization Society was get rid of them, move them out, move them outside the nation state. We have done what we're supposed to do and move them out. So if you want to see a parallel between the African American and Latino experience, particularly for the Mexican experience, you're talking about that when we need Mexican laborers, we'll bring them in, and then we close the border, and then we do
Yeah, we'll give them a pass.
repatriation campaigns in the 1930s, Operation Wetback in the 1950s. But when we want them, we'll do the Bracero program, which is bringing them between 1942 and 1964. So the pattern of utilizing a racialized labor force to achieve economic gains is the blueprint for the nation. The original body that it's done for is the black body. And it continues into the contemporary
somebody
moment.
out there is asking the question, where's hope at? Where's the hope for a young black guy that's aspiring maybe to be like you, a professor at a university? Are you shattering his dreams? Or are you saying, no, you can still be better than me? What are you saying?
What Baton Rouge and Dallas, I think, have offered is, and I mean that the killing of the officers. Understand that Robert Williams was the head of the Deacons of Defense in the 1960s. And his radicalization will come from his experiences in the United States military. So the fact that the one thing that is in common is that you now have taken men who have gone through the indoctrination process of boot camp, served the United States military, served this nation, come back to the nation state, and are so disconnected and disgruntled, and we can call that mental illness.
Post-traumatic stress is a new
But
word.
they are then going to utilize their training
This is what I know.
to create chaos. To create chaos. And so we have tens of thousands of African American boys who are screaming silently. And if Baton Rouge and Dallas don't tell you that they're screaming silently, they're screaming silently. They're screaming silently. You can choose to look at Baton Rouge and Dallas as anomalies, misnomers, not true, taking away hope. What I hopefully see it as is, you didn't hear us when we told you. We've been telling you. It's bad. We don't want our sons killed anymore. We're tired of our sons being killed. I fear for my child. I keep telling you that. That's okay. Pat on the head. Oh, now you're going to listen now? Okay. That's what the riots of the 1960s were. You didn't want to hear us? We're going to blow some stuff up. Now you're going to hear? All right. The dangerous part is asymmetrical radicalization is a pattern that we see throughout the planet. That's the danger.
Because it may connect. I said
I'm
it.
just an historian. I just talk crap. I don't know. You trying to make some connections about.
I'm trying.
I just talk about past stuff.
Well, I'll think of a poem that's always been etched in my mind. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it drop like a raisin in the sun and explode?
Speak on it.
I'm a survivor of that period of time. Fred Hampton,
Speak on it.
somebody I love, assassinated by the Chicago Police Department, December 4th, 1968, in a pre-dawn raid.
Right.
If you pick up Chicago Sun-Times, you see the police officers carrying him out of that apartment with a smile on their face.
Speak on it.
None of them got time. When you witness the horrific beating of Rodney King in Los Angeles, the cops will acquit him. That was before video cameras, cell phones. Before that, we saw it, we watched it over and over and over. it comes to a point where, when does America wake up? It makes me think of thoughts of Dr. King when he says, maybe America is a burning house. And we're going to run in there and try to save. And we inside this burning house. So what would be a solution?
It's a cliche. I mean, I'm in higher education, so clearly I believe that the solution is with the last study that was done around millennials, ages 18 now to 30 something, is that what change they across the nation want purpose. They don't want to work for money. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that financial compensation doesn't matter to them. But they really want to, in what they do, work for purpose. And if we can give them the skills and the tools and the acumen that they can combine that energy, combine that passion, combine that acumen, and bring that into purpose, then what you're going to see is transformation. I believe that. I believe that black people are loving people.
Well, we have to be with all what we put up with. You talked about how many people would go through a system of slavery and still have an undying love for a country.
But we don't say that.
That is demonstrated in our continuous effort, and you will see it predominantly at Olympic Games. When we hurl that American flag, we giving it everything we got.
We do, but we don't.
But when we come home,
or when we serve in the
armed
forces,
that man.
But we don't. If we don't tell the story that after everything that happened, or if we want to dismiss it or minimize it or diminish it, then we can't hear the part which is black folks are loving people. We just sort of like, no, you're really sort of a complacent people. You're like dogs when we hit you on the head with a newspaper and you'll go away. That's the narrative.
So what? Well, you ain't white, but you got white blood in you. I got white blood in me. What part
16.7%.
What part of
acquired between 18 and 1860.
White folks don't get? What part don't they get? They in decision-making positions.
It's the same thing that men don't get. So, as a man in a society, I benefit from patriarchy, meaning that there's a society that is created to benefit me, and the ways that I am benefited are completely invisible to me. Completely invisible. And so my work as a man is to try to make sure that both I'm aware of when it happens, and it happens on a continuous basis, that I work at it actively, and that I listen to my colleagues, to my compatriots, to those who walk with me, who do not walk in the male body, when they tell me, look, this society is benefiting you, and I need to listen, shut up, engage, turn on spirit, and say, what am I not seeing here and experiencing? So I can't speak for white folks. I can only speak for when I am in a privileged position, what is my responsibility? So I'm not trying to put that on you, but I am trying to say that if I'm serious about changing it, then I need to take action, and then I need to constantly be listening. I need to constantly be doing feedback, but I also need to be constantly working with men, because it's not women who have the problem. It's men that are enjoying patriarchy and privilege. So that means it's on me to work with men to say, this is not behavior we can do anymore. That doesn't work anymore. That actions need to change. That behavior needs to change. I need to be an ally. And if we're not doing all of that, then you're part of the problem.
So that makes me ask a question then. I know some of my close white friends are probably wondering, Ralph, when are you going to ask him about this here? Black on black crime. Is always pushed in our minds, TV, black on black crime. It's a reality that happens, but they don't talk about white on white crime. They don't talk about brown on brown crime or yellow on yellow crime. But black on black crime is always something that is emphasized more than anything. Agree or disagree?
You know, I find it interesting that the only time that there is a concern around black on black crime was when Black Lives Matters emerges. It doesn't mean that I'm dismissive of the fact that I've got There was we did a listening session for students at the college on the 19th of July. In the middle of summer, we've got 50 students there engaged and talking. There's a beautiful young brother who talked about the pain of black on black crime, and meaning losing somebody as a result. And part of our collective work as elders is to hear his pain, acknowledge his pain. I hear you. I hear you. I hear your pain. But that said, I want you to ask yourself, so what would it take for a human being to remove from the planet another human being who looks like them? It just means the data point is the person who you love was killed. The frame that you've been told is black on black crime as a result of problems with black people. All right, let's change the frame. The person you love is still killed. Let's ask a different question, which is, what happened to that dude that he's in so much pain that he looks in the mirror and he's going to kill himself? Because that's what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean, it's not black pathology. That's just, we need to ask a different question. And I don't need folks who are not in the community asking that question. And I'm always like, so that's an interesting, why that question now? I'm curious. Okay. So I'm not sure, why are we, doesn't mean we're not working on black crime, but it means that Black Lives Matters is Black Lives Matter. And it should matter to each other, which is what one of the original efforts were for Black Lives Matter, if you would bother to listen. Because if you have an organization that's started by women who are concerned around the death of children, then of course they believe that Black Lives Matter, and they mean that to everybody. Now, if majority of folks are going to interpret that differently, that's their choice. But you want to ask the question, if black women are leading a movement, here's some guarantees. They're concerned about their children, they're concerned about their community, and what they're going to try to do is to make substantive and not incremental change. They want systemic change because they're seeing their children getting killed. So the actual history, not the made up crap, but the actual history of Black Lives Matter is one of black women getting together and saying enough is enough. That's the real narrative. Now, I don't know how we got to this other crap. I don't mean what they're doing, I mean the interpretation of them. But if you keep circling back and you actually listen, you don't have to do a lot of research to find out the origin of Black Lives Matter. But somehow those origin stories are completely removed.
All right.
There's a real origin story.
But for the sake of time, which is probably ticking rapidly away,
Yes, sir.
let's talk about the black church. Let's squeeze that in
Okay.
and what role it plays and what role it hasn't been playing.
The African American, the traditional role of the institutions, which are the African American clergy and the African American press, are instrumental in changing the experiences for black folks. The African American clergy, be it non-denominational, Protestant and Catholic, are still important and play that critical role. They're gathering places. They are places that provide financial support, emotional sustenance, spiritual sustenance, collective work, collective engagement, voter registration. I mean, just innumerable. And there's a portion of that population, meaning pastors, who don't live their faith. And that happens. But I think for me, if we're going to focus in on the black church, it doesn't mean I want to erase and ignore the things that are not going well, but the story of what happens on a day-to-day basis in African American, non-denominational, Protestant, and Catholic churches, where is that? Why aren't we telling that story? People are just grinding on an everyday basis, but we're not telling that story. The killings that happened at Mother Emanuel, it's recognizing that that facility, that building, that edifice was a location that for a century plus the black folks came to worship and found self and sustenance in. And that its programs are numerous, but we're not having the conversation around the programs.
Now where's that church located at?
Mother Emanuel is, he's going to forget off the top of his head. The killing that happened there.
South Carolina?
Yes, sir. There you go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Senator Pickett? Pinckney.
Yeah,
Okay, assassination
yeah.
that occurred
In the middle of a service,
in the middle of a service,
prayer service.
and the man that committed the assassination got hungry, stopped, and
Stop
had
it.
a
Stop
Burger
it.
King.
Stop it.
All right,
Stop
for the
it.
sake of time, it's time to wrap this show up. Conversations in Monrovia. Honored to have today in the studio assistant professor from Pasadena City College with wealth of knowledge and a deep heart. I'll say that right now.
You can do whatever you put your mind to. Whatever you put your soul and your spirit to, there are no limitations to what you can achieve. Believe that.
All right, thank